Oh, there we go. Okay. How's my hair? Well, since the last time many of you saw me, I've done some redecorating, as you can tell. I've made it a lot homier. So, in case you're just tuning in and have no idea who I am or what's going on, I go by the moniker Felinix in a certain community. As part of that community, there was a contest recently to which I submitted a video, and I, won. So I thought it might be fun for anybody who has no idea how I did anything that I did, that I would go through and talk about all the things I did and how I did them. So let's jump in. All right. Let's grab that and put it over here. Out of the way. Ish. So, most of what I use is over here. Started with Reaper, then to Blender, some work in Paint.net, and ending in HitFilm Express. All of these were free at the very least for the time I was using it. Reaper is a paid program, but they have a free trial, and that's what I was using. And honestly, I didn't do anything particularly fancy with it, other than this distortion effect that I couldn't necessarily do in like Audacity or something. That's just a little bit less interesting to work with. So, all of this starts with the music. The music is sort of the script for this video. It's what formed the timing, and how much space I had to do things in, because working backwards from the video would have been just basically impossible. So, what you're seeing here is 3 different songs, all by Tessa Violet: Bored, Honesty, and Interlude 3. It just so happens that the subject matter for these songs allowed for me to pick and pull pieces of that music out and stitch them together in a way that was very nice. So the first 50 seconds are relatively unchanged, but in that song it then goes into a bridge that it's harder to jump, that just led into another verse. And what I wanted to do was not do the whole song, because I wanted to be able to actually tell a story with the music. So, it starts normally, then it goes into this bridge, which then goes, and I can't get out of goes back into a chorus, which then leads into the ending. Because there's another, I don't know, like a bridge or verse or something that just goes on. So this much has been cut. And I cut them, and it just so happens that because of the way sound works, you can sort of look at, oops, you can sort of look at the sound wave patterns and see where things match up. Because these are different parts of the song. But because it uses the same instrumentation, the same notes, the same voices, you can use a fade, which is what this is, to overlay them on top so that when they transition, it's not obvious that what you're doing. Because if you look here, your waveforms are just slightly different because the two pieces of music but they are similar enough that you can't really tell if you just overlay them on top of each other, because they're going to fade into in and out of each other in a way that is relatively seamless. And that's what I aimed to do, and I feel like I did a pretty good job. A couple people told me they didn't even know that it was multiple songs, that's what I had done, which is exactly what I was hoping for. There were several points where I was doing this, and I was like, oh, that matches so perfectly, it's completely seamless, and I'm so happy about it. Just because like a millisecond off makes it discordant, makes it very obvious what you're doing. And finding pieces of the music that actually do line up in a way that isn't like exceedingly obvious is really hard. So then what I ended up with was this section is all from Bored, and then this section is from Honesty, and then this section is from the interlude, I think. So yeah, and this section actually involves a couple cuts, so that because there's a couple bridges, and I really wanted to condense it down to like the really important bits, the parts that really said the things that I wanted it to say, and it does. And then back here, all I did was I copied this last section several times, and then grabbed the opening from the first song from Bored and put it at the end. And that got me 3 minutes. And you have...
You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
Just a distortion effect. There were a couple, like, when I was looking into how to do this, because that's what I did. I started this whole project basically not knowing how to do anything. I knew how to trim video and stitch them together, but I didn't really know how to do any of like the really fancy stuff. Similar thing here. I had written some music with MIDI using this program. It's not that great. It was entirely built to be background music for something else. But the effects here, I had to figure out how to do. There are add-ons that you can pay for to do essentially the same thing without having to fiddle with settings. But I wanted to focus on using things that anybody could pick up. I wanted to really show, like, not only do I have this, creative mind and all these things, but also anybody who just has the idea and the thought can do this. It doesn't take a huge amount of actual skill to make the things in your head visible. So I did find a way through Google searching a way to do this effect. And what it is it shifts the pitch and the formant, which I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I think it affects the speed a little bit, and just alter it enough that it becomes really apparent that it's distorted, and then return it to normal for the outro. So that was how I did the music. That probably took me 2 or 3 days to edit and figure out how to do the things. Days, of course, when I speak, I mean free time. Okay, so and if you actually like, I had several drafts, and I did not know if I was going to have time to do everything that I wanted to do. So I had several versions of this that I rendered while I was working on other things. So this is the section I designate the soliloquy, the moment where I kind of bring things to a lighter tone, and really kind of hit this note of, fuck, this is what I'm feeling. This is what this is all about. And as you can see, I've got this neat effect going on. But is it this one? Maybe I saved over them all. But that lighting effect actually wasn't. Yeah. So this is the original. This is what it was going to be if I didn't have time to actually put in all of the effects, like those last minute touches. So you don't have that lighting effect, which this was my original plan. When I had the final draft, this is what it looked like. And I showed it to a couple friends, and one of them said, this section, there's just no effects or anything. You should do something with that. And I was like, well, the entire reason is because I didn't want it to be really flashy. I wanted it to be focused on this feeling, this acting. And so then I was like, well, maybe I can cut myself out, and I'll get into the specifics of how that process went. But the first segment that I shot was this scene 2, I call it, the chase. This is the first segment. This whole bit where I'm running in and out of doors. I wonder, do I have... Is this an older version of it? Yes. So this is an older version. So essentially, like, my original vision ended up being this. Like, I'm running in and out of doors, and I had planned which doors to go in and out of, the timing for them, and all that stuff. But some segments I had to cut because there just was no physical way for me to run from one door to another in time, to open one door, leave it, and get into another get into the door and then close it, because for this section, I didn't want there to be multiple versions of me on the screen. I just wanted it to be one at a time. Up until that soliloquy, in which I have 2 versions. And so this section was originally written to be just running straight at the camera, and then the door opens and blocks me. But I was finding the timing really hard to get down, so I was like, well, what if I just fall and crawl? And that's what I did. That's what I ended up doing. This bit was not part of the original. This just kind of came to me while I was editing, being like, I want something a little bit more going on here. And I'm like, well, there's this repetition in a chorus, so why not do something where I like bring back some of those earlier personas. And so that's what that's all about. Let's see. Does this do... Yeah. So... So, as you can see, that section was boring. I'm pointing over there, like, I kind of wanted to give this idea of, you know, this is where I'm leaving, but this is where I'm coming out anyway, so there's this futility of what I'm feeling. The idea to put the flash in this doorway occurred to me literally last second, as I'm editing this section. And I think it actually adds that really nice, powerful punch visually, personally. So the chase. Step 1 was go through all my takes, find the best part, the best take, and clip it. That's it. Just find the take that I want to use, clip it, and then render it. And so that's what I did. It's just really easy as throwing your clip in and then cutting out the bits that you don't want. Super easy. All it requires is for you to know what you want. And basically for every piece of footage from the baseline, that's what I start with. I start with grabbing the take, and some of them I actually had multiple takes that I did this with just to see how things flow in and out of each other. But yeah, so that's where all of this is. So since the segment 7 and the soliloquy actually merged together, I think this is the bit where it's the soliloquy. And I think this is just the take. Keep in mind, I actually haven't probably looked at this footage for 2 weeks. 2.5 weeks. Because I filmed all of this over the course of 2 or 3 days. Not moving my camera, not doing any streaming, focusing entirely on making sure that the shot was consistent. Which ended up being a kind of pain in the ass later. So yeah, so this is that take. And then, before stitching everything together for the whole final chase, I wanted to I think Am I missing a folder? Oh, there it is. The chase and end. I think. Is this the whole thing? Again, I'm not sure what's in these files. Oh god. Oh god. Oh, we'll get into that. We will get into that. That I actually technically did. That I did actually touch recently. But it was last week. How am I supposed to remember things from last week? Okay. So this is where in order to get these two sections together as one, because I wanted to kind of get that out of the way to get two things at once. So what you end up having here is I believe these are segmented masks. Because what you can kind of see me coming in. Oops. If you look really closely, you can actually see me approach from that doorway. Because you can see my socks coming forward. But this... Oh. This I cropped. I didn't even do any masking. I just cropped it. I just made a line, right? If you look really, really close, you can actually see there's a slight discoloration line here where the videos meet. But it's mostly hidden because I drew it along this wall. And then basically once this version of me stops being on this side of the screen, I extend that a little bit further so that when I step out into that area, I'm not cut off. And that's really simple. It's not, doesn't even use masking. It just uses trimming the video, the actual image of the video, and then stacking it on top. Because Blender views things in a stack. So your bottom layer is what it lays down first. And I always laid down the audio first because that's the framework. And then whatever your base is, that's going to be the next level. And then this is going to be placed on top. So this section here is actually, that goes on top, is actually the section where I'm coming out of the door and then leave. Because this segment that's on bottom is me coming out here and then doing the soliloquy. Simply because it was just a little bit easier to do that way because the soliloquy goes on afterwards. So rather than having to create more edits to make sure that, for example, if I do this, I hid this video, so you can actually see where that line is. And you can see that it kind of creeps forward and then fades out. Let's hide all of that. So starting here. Okay, yeah, I was just lazy and I just did this whole section. It's fine. So yeah. And in terms of modifiers, because that's something that matters, if I can get this to show up. Here we go. The blend mode is what matters here. Because there are a couple different kinds, but alpha under means that this is going to be on bottom. Alpha over means this is going to be on top. Real simple. Doesn't require a lot of manipulation. Oops. That section, real easy, real simple. Just, cut and paste some stuff on top of each other, right? All right. The chase. All right. So the actual chase. I had to learn how to do masking. What is masking, you ask? It's fucking complicated. In order to achieve the transitions. Oh yeah, okay. So this was just me playing around with this. Because this section was very complicated. And I ended up doing it like the like 4 or 5 days leading up to the deadline. It turns out when you have ADHD, you have a very hard time. No, thank you, whatever that was. When you have ADHD, you have a hard time parsing out how long things are going to take. It's not great. Okay. So I don't even think any of these are old versions. I think all of these are just different variations of this masking. Because I wanted to have different options. So that I could do all this really complicated stuff that was really hard, save it, and then if I wanted to alter that and try something different and new, I wouldn't have to worry about, oh, how do I return back to that original state? So, starting from here, hopefully nobody actually noticed some of the things that I had to do. My camera, I didn't realize this until after I was basically editing everything all together, why it was doing this. There's an option for auto white balance, which alters the color of the video automatically to try and make it look good. And more or less depending on what I was wearing and how close I had been to the camera recently, shifted what that white balance was. So if you end up looking at, because I think this is, yeah, so if you end up looking like at the cheeseburger backpack here, the color is different between these two shots. So I had to find some way to kind of make that less noticeable. And one of the ways I did that was, once again, creating composite shots using crops. So that like everything on this side would be the correct color, and then fade one into the other so that if you watch the cheeseburger backpack here, you can see it shifts color. And the purpose there is to make it less obvious that it's a different shot. I don't teleport and time travel and change. Though some of you have insinuated as such, I am not magic. It's just different shots. And timed using the music line to determine, when does this door open? When should I have this door open? Because there's a specific sound cue that those are all timed to. And so that's how that works. So a lot of these shots end up being composites of some sort, using this. Where what I did here, actually, I should probably talk about how I achieved that effect. So what I have here is actually just an image. I rendered a single frame where I'm nowhere on screen from one side, from one take, and then a single frame from the next segment. And then just faded one onto the other. Simple as that. Take one frame from one, take another frame for another. Yeah. What is this? Okay, so this segment actually changed a lot. So, originally this was just going to turn black. It was just going to, the whole screen was just going to turn black, and then I would run in, and the blackness would go away. All that darkness would just vanish because I'm wearing light, And then I got to thinking that that's really boring. So, I spent 2 or 3 days constructing what I call the Dark World, in which I spent hours trying to get my camera to be at least remotely at the right angle. So yeah. So originally, this just fades out, and there was this really, really gross looking masking that had started here and grew, and it wasn't pretty. It looked bad. It looked so bad. And I think it actually might have looked better if I had learned about feathering at that time, but I didn't know about feathering. So instead, I decided to do something exceedingly complicated, whereby I have these shards of this other world chase me, and then fill in, and then I come in with my glowing gear, and then that gear, once I reach a certain point, dispels the darkness. As I was shooting this, it didn't even occur to me any of these effects. It was really just, these are the things I'm going to perform, and we'll figure out everything else later, which to some degree constrained me, but to another degree really freed me up to do some really, really cool stuff. So for example, this, we're just going to close out of this. So, as I'm shooting this, I'm realizing that the lyric there, um, you think you're trapped, but it's nothing but smoke. As I'm coming in out of the dark, out of that dark corner, I realize there's something really cool I can do with this. I can make it so that uh, the previous segment brings in this uh, darkness that's oppressive, and then, like, I think I'm trapped, but in reality, it's just smoke. And then it just disappears with that lyric. As I'm like filming this, I'm like, oh god, this is gonna be so cool. Um, oh boy, little did I know it'd be so much work. And we'll get more into those effects. Because I kind of want to go in like order of how I processed everything. So as I'm editing this, because I hadn't moved my camera just then, I was going through all my takes and rendering them, just so that I could make sure that I had what I needed before I moved on. So while I'm while I'm editing this end segment, I realized, there's this segment here that I just want something a little bit more. And that's where things started to get interesting. All right, so to achieve this effect, as well as to achieve the original encroaching darkness, what I did was masking. Now, what is masking, you might ask? So masking is, to simplify it, to make it exceedingly simple, masking is when you take, sort of like, you make a cutout, and then you put that over top the film, and then re-records that film, theoretically. Thankfully, here, you don't have to do anything that complicated. You don't have to do any cutting of the frame, or cutting of one piece of film, and then cutting the second piece of film, and then gluing them together, or anything complicated like that. The computer does it all. It's so great. I'm so glad I could do this through a computer, because, oh boy, oops, if there was ever any error that I made, it would have been so much work to redo the whole thing. So some of the things you do with the masks is, if it's a very simple mask, where does this start? 2987? 2987. Okay, yeah. So if it's super simple, all you need to do is outline what you need. Because there's an angle here, I couldn't do cropping. I couldn't crop the top and the bottom and the sides and then just put it where I needed it to go. I had to do a mask. I had to figure out how to do this, because that's the only way I was going to achieve this effect. And so what you see here is an image of, because you have to put in, you don't necessarily have to, you can freehand a mask and without this background, but it really helps to know exactly where things are on your screen. So as you can see here, under mods, I have a mask. So I applied a mask. If I remove the mask or hide it, because this footage is on top, Blender looks down like it's an animator's camera and just sees that top footage. With a mask, it creates a hole in, or in this case, around the footage, so that when it's looking down, it can then see the layer below it. And as you can see here, the original masking for this segment was really, really bad. Like, my original thought was, because I wanted it to be isolated, like, look how bad that is. Ugh. And this is why I like this. This is Sunday afternoon and evening work. This is what I was doing the hours leading up to. I was working on this effect, this initial masking to try and make it feel isolated, and then figuring out how to make it not look like absolute garbage. My original idea was to cut myself out entirely, so I'm just in complete darkness, moving around. But I thought, given how many edges there are, because these masks get complicated. Oops. So this is what is this mask? Soliloquy symbol. Okay. It's not simple. So my original masking actually had, as you can see, two separate mask pieces, which got really gross and really hard, and in subsequent iterations, I actually got I just separated these into two separate masks, because that just made things so much easier. Particularly when I was like reworking things from here. So as you can see, like I had to put in points. If you see, as I move these points and adjust that line, it affects what is shown and what is cut out. In this case, it cuts from the top layer, and this bottom layer is just a solid sheet of black, the color black, to give that, void feeling. I did think about doing some sort of like otherworld underneath it, but I didn't want to take that time because I didn't have the time. So what I ended up doing was, because I didn't want to make points around all of these little pieces of me constantly, because that would have probably taken another 10 hours, and this alone took me about 5 hours. I just brought those points up to the light, and it was like, we'll make it like a magic spotlight. Unfortunately, it looks like garbage. Fortunately, I learned there's this really cool thing called feathering. I don't remember how to do it. Because I was just so tired. What is it? Is it Alt? No. Is it Shift? Shift Just right click. Oh, I bet this will tell me. No? Okay. Oh yeah, so you can pull these lines and shape them. But who has time for that? Trying to remember, how do I add feathering? Shift click just does that. Oops. I did not want to do that. Anyways, there's a way to do it. Here we go. There is a button press to do it, but I don't remember what it is. So if you kind of select all, isn't it Shift A? No, Control A? Oh, it's Control L, everything linked. That's right. I haven't looked at this program. Why are you doing that? Control L. Scale feather? There we go. So this is feathering. Also known as, it creates a blur effect, basically, on the edges. So as you can see here, these edges are super sharp. But with the feathering, it softens them. One of the things that helps really sell that is switching the direction so that the feathering goes outwards rather than inwards. So you can see some of these lines are a little bit softer, but if you put it outwards, it blends it out. So that's how you get these fuzzy edges. And the further out you adjust them, the further out that blend goes. And that's how I achieve that lighting effect. Don't save, which should be this one maybe? Oh, this is the one I originally clicked on. Nope. Right? Oh, no, okay. So, and this is where the masking got a little bit more complicated, because so this is the masking for the door. I want it to be like when that version of me left, it took all of the light out. And all that was left was this darker shadow. And so that's how that happened. What I had to do for some of these was to manually adjust the shape here, because right? Oh, I have to do this one. That's right. Because sometimes if the feathering isn't quite right, it creates sharp lines. So I pulled them out. And I did the feathering for the whole thing, and then I manually adjusted each one every time I went, because I went frame by frame, looking for any indication of those visual artifacts. Now, there is a way to, oops, we'll do this one. So say we start on 2987, right? So you have this going on here on 2987. So let's apply the right door here. Why is it doing that? What does that do? Does that do what I need it to do? No. Oh, is it because... No? Or is it because I have to do something like this? Anyways. So, once you start moving frames, oh, that's right. So, keyframes. This is something that took me a really long time to figure out, keyframes. So if you look at this here, the doc sheet, no, that's not right. Dope sheet, the dope sheet. You see all these little triangles. Well, these little triangles represent memories. So it remembers what settings for that object were at that time. So if, for example, we're on right door. So we create a keyframe. Oh, it's auto keyframing? It does not actually seem to be auto keyframing. So we'll just hit I to insert. No? Why are we not? Is it Control I? Is that why? Okay, well. Something weird's going on here. Anyways, so let's try soliloquy simple 1, which has this door here. So this ended up being really simple. So if you look at, where are my frames here? Oh, I have a lot of keyframes on this segment. That's weird. So these keyframes say, for example, here, I have this keyframe that says all of these dots are here. And then I have here a keyframe that says all of these dots are here, but I don't have a keyframe in between. But instead of the program saying, okay, we're going to repeat where these settings are on this frame, it instead finds a spot in between. So it automatically animates that for us. Unfortunately, when you have a complicated shape that's moving, there is tracking, but this was like the last day and I really couldn't spend the time to learn how to do tracking. There's this thing called tracking where you can designate an object in the film and the program will automatically do whatever it is you're trying to make it do for that object. However, I was concerned that because I start here in the darkness, that it wouldn't know to differentiate what was me and what was darkness. So I decided, you know what, the simplest thing to do would be to just rotoscope it. Rotoscope meaning go frame by frame and make the adjustments as necessary. And each time I made an adjustment is a new keyframe. So that's why it took hours for me to do, is because I was going frame by frame to put myself in that light. So much fun. So that's that technique. That's how I did those. So like anytime you see something like this, where it's an irregular shape, more than likely it's a mask. And anytime you see any kind of animation, for example, these shards coming in, these are also keyframed masks. I believe it's encroaching. No, it's not encroaching shadow. It's encroaching shadow was the original version of this. Seeping shadow was the experiment. So I kept the original thing because I was like, well, if this doesn't work, what I'm about to try, I want to be able to fall back to the original, even if it looks like garbage. At least I'll have tried something else before settling on garbage. And not all of these, so not all of even these frames are keyframed. I did keyframe a lot of them, but like here, I just said, okay, I want all of these triangles to be at this point, primarily here. And then I want them to, by this point, have moved to other locations. And so it just filled in all of these frames in between. Very handy, very nice. But because of the way things intersected and because I wanted to make really small micro adjustments because of who I am as a person, I did a lot of keyframing for this segment. And so that's how you get that's how you got the shards, and that's also how you got with the dispelling shadow. That's how you got this effect. Again, with the feathering, so this effect actually had been done like 2-ish weeks ago. But when I learned how to do feathering, I'm like, oh my gosh, that'll make this section look a lot cleaner. Because without the feathering, it did not look good. One of the things that really concerned me when I was figuring out how to do feathering was that if I had already keyframed, for example, these things, if I had already keyframed these, I couldn't just set the feathering here and it would apply it to everything. I had to, I thought, apply it at the time of making the keyframe, and then it would apply it to all the future ones, which wasn't helpful, A, in this case, because of what I was doing, and B, in the first case, because I didn't know that's what I was looking for anyways. But I figured out that if you clear that, what is all? I don't remember what all is. But if you clear the featherweight, it brings them down. And then you can tell it to reset the feather animation. So if we went to scale the feather, scale feathering, oh, that's why. So now oh look, these are totally different. So what we do is if we reset it, we don't have that effect. Because what you have to do first is you have to reset it first so that there's nothing. Oops, no. Undo. So we clear them. Come on. Oh, because I'm not actually selecting anything. That's why, right? There we go. There's all, so if we just clear that featherweight and then reset the feather animation, the feather animations for the subsequent keyframes are gone. But if you then scale your feathering here and then go forward, it's still not there. So what you can do then is I don't remember how to do this apparently. But for sure it was resetting it. Maybe it's clearing it. Oh, maybe I have to do that. Is that what I have to do? Yeah, that's what I had to do. I had to actually select the dots, that's right. It gets really finicky about that, which is good, because if I wanted to maybe reset only even 1 point's animation, I could do it 1 point at a time. But yeah, that's how I created that shadow dispelling effect. As well as the shard effect is just really complicated rotoscoped maskings. I think that's everything super shiny there. Oh, except this one. So as I said earlier, there was nothing planned here. But as I was going through and doing this shadow editing, I was like, well, this is also really boring. There's nothing going on. And that's why I grabbed a piece of footage that I filmed for a different segment and just flashed it for that brief moment. And I think it worked really good. Don't save. Since we're on that segment, let's talk about Dark World. And while that's figuring itself out, let's open up the Dark World blend. So this might kill my computer. Well, let's find out. One of the reasons I didn't do any of this work streaming is because I didn't want to risk my computer dying because I was pushing it too hard. So what you end up here is just a ton of different masks. Oh, I guess I didn't even need masks at this point. So I do have a mask here. To make the coloring of this shrine match what a different area, but so what you end up having is I did a blend of add, because all of these, if you hide everything underneath, then there's nothing for the system to add it to. If you do alpha over, where's alpha over? Oh, there it is. So if you look here, the only thing that's really visible is this because I wasn't paying attention, and by the time I noticed, it was far too late to fix. And this particle effect, which, as I was bringing up here, oops, why did you do that? I wanted to zoom in. I took my curtains down and I put them in that doorway in the back of my apartment so that it was just a black wall, because what Blender does when you blend an ad is it takes the color value of each pixel and increases the pixel color of the footage underneath by that, which is really complicated. So what happens is, if everything is black, it doesn't add anything, or it adds very little. And the only thing that really stands out is this confetti, because that's what it is. It is straight up confetti. The actual footage being as you can see, I'm throwing it down. So it's falling. And in order to create this particle effect where it goes up, you just reverse the footage. It's really that simple. Reverse the footage. Now Blender is finicky about that, and I'm not even going to get into it. At me if you've ever tried to do this and are having problems, and I'll try and walk you through it. But that's how I created this dark world, is just by stacking all of these different particle effects on top of each other, to create this really, mysterious, mystical kind of, that's what I was trying to do. Look. It's also the only portion of this video where there's something directly in the foreground that I move between. And some of you might be asking, oh, but if it's in the foreground in this video, why is it in the foreground in the main video? And the answer to that is, whoops, not the epilogue. The answer to that is a simple, if I can find it. Is it not in this folder? Is it on the other folder? So what I did is yeah, here it is. I used paint.net to, I rendered a single frame, and I opened it up in paint.net, and I cut out these objects, and then in that video I overlaid it on top. Like I said, Blender looks down, so if you have an image or a video whose background is transparent, you don't have to do any masking. It just looks through that transparent part. So that's how I did that. It's just an image laid on top. And since there's different lighting, there is actually a subtle light shift from purple to green. I did this. I took a still from the green section as well, and if you look at the video during that time, there is there's a segment where both of these images fade in and out of each other. And the effect is relatively subtle because because they're in the same position and all that's changing is the color. Different color, different shading, different lighting. I didn't lighten it. It's literally just an entirely different image. And you can see that fucking thing. But by that point, it was too late to fix. So I just had to live with it. And it's just barely noticeable. One of the things that, if you look super close, let's take out all these particle effects so it renders a little bit easier. Is this? Yeah. So I think, yeah, this is the one. So if you watch, it's really hard to see because it's in the background and there's so much going on. But the box opens in this shot. Which was a really fun effect to figure out how to make. What it is it is a piece of yarn attached to the close side here, and this is a cardboard box behind. This is actually a blanket over top of I took my laundry hamper and turned it upside down. This banner is actually a fundoshi. It's a very cute fundoshi, but it's a fundoshi. Laid over top another blanket, and so that yarn actually pierces through the back of the box, and I'm behind there pulling it. So that's how I opened the box. That's the Dark World. Like, a lot of work went into just that segment, just to make it look really neat. And so then after that, I shot the lure. Actually, before I shot the lure, I thought, you know, what'd be really cool is if I made a promo photo. And that's what this is. This is, again, paint.net composite shotting. Basically cutting around and digitally gluing images together. So this is just literally, I took a whole bunch of pictures from different positions, thinking very carefully about where I had been standing previously, to make it so that when I went to cut them all together, one, we weren't literally standing on each other, and two, our shadows didn't have to cross or anything, because the shadows actually cause a lot of problems if you aren't careful. So, for example, if my arm was a little bit too forward, it would cast a shadow this way, which would make it so that this shadow should technically be darker, but I didn't have a mix ability. I'm sure if I looked really hard, I probably could have blended it together somehow, but this was literally just like an end of the day shot thing where I was like, well, this might be fun to do. For the lure, which is the first section, I did something very similar. After I had filmed everything and I was like, okay, well, this is the background. This is the final. This is what the ending shot is going to look like. I just took a whole bunch of photos of myself in the different outfits, and then glued them all together. It's really hard to tell, but I've got a spoon in my mouth. This one's probably one of my favorites, because he's literally just like, what the fuck is going on? I'm trying to eat cereal. And then, you know, the responsible one is like, who's going to clean this up? And then he's like, well, he made the mess. Because technically he did. He's the one who made the mess. That's the one that made the mess. And those both probably took like 1 to 2 hours total. Most of it being changing into different outfits. The lure. So once again, you start with your takes. Well, I started with my takes. I figured out which takes I wanted, which was the one that I wanted to stick in. And then once I had all of my bits together, I created this stacking pyramid of awful garbage. So this is actually a render of sticking together this segment. And it's difficult to tell because of the last effect, but when the figure isn't in the mirror here, it's standing here and like raising its hand as if to reach out. The implication is supposed to be that the box is the originator of all of this mysterious stuff. And then, you know, I run off screen. And then, mysteriously, the ball moves. How could that happen? Well, it turns out I masked myself out, so you can't tell, but I am actually behind the couch, and I masked this out too, so you can't see it in the actual video. I used a broom to push the ball out. And I don't know if anybody even noticed that the ball moved by itself. I wanted it to be kind of like this like subtle little weird mysterious thing that went on. So, and this is one of the things that I had a little bit of trouble with was the light. Is it this one? Oh yeah, I wanna mute that, I think. No? Yeah, so my shadow is up here as I'm moving, and I thought it'd be really obvious that there was something weird going on, so I actually masked out this segment of the wall so that as I'm moving and the light and my shadow is moving, it also moves. And then, let's see. Let's take out all of the masks so I can figure out which part is wet. Yeah, so I'm laying on the ground in the background. I've got the broom handle jammed underneath the frame of the door, and I'm just pulling it back. That's how that effect is made. Just pulling it with a broom. It's really not that complicated. It's practical effects, essentially. This video had practical effects and special effects. And then the thing that some people were like, whoa, like the room cleans itself up. They were like really impressed by that, which I'm very glad because I spent so much time doing that. And the reason why I did that is because immediately following the scene, the camera's supposed to turn and create a transition to the next segment. But when I went to film the turn, it had been the next day, and I realized that I had cleaned my apartment. So all this confetti wasn't on the ground, all the games weren't on the ground, uh, everything was not going to match. The transition where I turn was not going to match this final shot where I am. If I like mute all of this, it wouldn't have matched this. And also, notice how there's this box here? I moved the box. I swept up, I put the games away. So in order to make the room look like the transition shot, which is this one? Yeah. So in order to make the room look like this, I had to reverse everything. I had to figure out a way to make that make sense. And the way I did that was by reversing the footage, which involved some base shots so that once one video was done rendering, or was done, one reversal was done, it would remain the same. So this is the ball moving. So if we, for example, remove this ball under futon image, the ball's no longer under the futon. I didn't technically need to do the ball thing, but since I was reversing these two, I thought, let's do that as well. And again, this is achieved through masking. Just changing what the image is on top and applying that mask to the video. It's just reversed video overlaid on top. Which, you know, you might be like, well, how does that even work? How do we do that? Well, it's actually really simple. It's work, and it takes time. It probably did take me 6-ish hours to do all the masks and to get it reversed. But I did it. And then just because I was doing all of this extra reversing, I isolated the video where I open the box, and I cut everything except the box out. So just because I wanted to give that little extra bit, the box is then open during the transition, which I thought was a really clever thing. Like, this entire effect was done on the fly and in response because I forgot to do a thing. And the video ends up better for it. Happy accidents. And then the epilogue. This was fun. I upend my entire apartment to kind of give this idea of the... Oh my, why is it like this? I must have renamed something. Or moved it. Why are you like this? Ah, that's why. Alright, so I just need to, I think, rename the source, and it should remember everything else about this. Just have to remember which. This one, maybe? And then... this one, maybe? And my computer's chugging along as I'm trying to pull this information up. Because I do not have a great computer. Someday. Okay, so... none of that's right. Something got wonky. Well, whatever. The important point is, I filmed some composites here, simple composites. Why are you... why are you? Why are you doing that? Must be why. Well, whatever. So I separately filmed the box opening. Something's gone wonky here. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm not going to worry about it. The important thing is I composited this video on top of the box opening up, and then had the light up above going, and then because in the actual takes that light's open. It's already open because I wanted it to be when I've got this freeze frame going on. I wanted there to be some of that light. I think it was so long ago. But yeah, so this is a This is just, I grabbed I rendered a single frame and then masked around so that I could
You're okay.
Why are you doing this? There we go. And then put that over top. Weird. And then another particle effect. In the darkness as an add, but if we do a alpha over, you can see it's just darkness and a light, which is, here we go, right? Which is lighting it up, and then footage is reversed. And then the ending title card is just, I opened paint.net. I had this font already because I was using it for a different project. And I thought, it's a corrupted video. Why not use this corrupted font? Because if you come to the full base, this is where all three of those parts get put together before the final effects get added on. There are, let's clear the fade. This font is the same as this font. It's got static on it. And paint.net lets me change the colors. So, give that a little bit of extra punch. This image was, I thought, kind of just a neat little thing to throw in at the end. Sort of a reference to some of the things I did. There are things like lighting effects that are kind of hidden. So like when you see the boxes that are lit up on the edges, those are just these boxes that you put in these shelves with spotlights put in like these. And because there's cardboard in the sides, but the edges are fabric, it creates that look. And then also because some of these are white and white bounces light pretty well, I was able to use those as sort of like reflectors to help disperse light in one direction. This is, if I can get one of them out. These lights, they change colors. Inside the box, when it's glowing, it's one of those light bars with just the color changed. These little lamps helped me achieve lights as well. Here's the little shrine, which I kept up for a little while because it was cute. And I pulled the yarn forward, so it was a little bit obvious. All the outfits, the box, the container of confetti that I made. And I kept this on just to kind of reference. This thing was on. It had light, and in some of those shots where I was trying to create those overlays for the particle effects, that would have been really obvious, so I taped a political ad over it, because I'm making the use out of those political ads before I get rid of them and recycle them. I thought that was just a neat little thing to throw in. And all of the outfits are here, all the accessories, everything's visible in one place. And so that's kind of the base here. You've got each of those segments I rendered out and then stitched together. And then once that was done, I brought it over because I couldn't find a really nice, clean way to do that final glitch video effect in Blender. So I went with Hit Film Express, which is also free. They have paved for add-ons, so if there are other like special extra effects that you want, you can purchase those packs so that it'll nicely and easily make those effects happen for you. And every single effect that I'm talking about, compositing, masking, rotoscoping, everything I found through YouTube tutorials or forum posts on like Reddit. The information is there, you just gotta know how to ask the question. And one of the also one of the reasons why I wanted to do this like mysterious box figure in the background is because it's October. I was like, I looked at the contest event date. And I'm like, it's October. Let's do a spooky thing. And so I did something a little spooky. The whole video was supposed to be sort of like this visual representation of what it feels like to be alone in an apartment for 3 weeks at a time. I haven't seen any of my friends in person in months. I haven't hugged anybody. I leave my apartment to stock up on frozen food and fancy filtered milk because that milk doesn't go bad for months. And so I know that I don't have to worry about going out to the store every like once a week or so to get a new gallon of milk because the other's gone off. This stuff lasts, and I go through milk fairly quickly between cereal and my morning milkshakes. Yeah. It becomes a point where it feels like your entire world loops back in on itself, that if you were to leave the apartment, you just end up on a different section of the apartment. And that's the feeling that I had and I've been living with, and I wanted to kind of put that into a video and express it. And, tell people it's okay to feel that way. But you're also going to be okay. This isn't forever. It's tough. And it might make you feel like different parts of you are trying to get all over the place. But your responsibility is to everyone around you. Keep them safe as best you can, and keep yourself safe. Wear a mask. Keep your distance. As much as you can. Don't go anywhere unnecessary. And it's not just to protect you, it's to protect your community too. Because just because you feel okay doesn't mean you're not sick. Doesn't mean that you can't make other people sick. Yeah. So, once again, we have keyframes. For effects. So this is a stacking of multiple effects. So you have we have my base video. Excuse me. Let me mute this real quick because this is going to get real annoying. Come on. You can do it. Oh, it's before that segment anyways. Okay. A little bit more. Alright. So, one of the first effects that gets applied is this distortion effect. It's where's my effects tab? Here it is. No? Where is... There's... Oh, there it is. Okay. So this grade is essentially grades as I understand them apply a thing to the video below. So just like Blender, the video looks from the top down and kind of as things come in and out renders those as they are. So the first effect is this this displacement effect. And that's applied first. After that's applied, it applies a composite, which is this video here. So this is a thing that so this is the video that's hidden underneath. And what I have, I believe, I don't remember why I split them up like this. Did I do something? I must have had a reason for splitting them up. It's got to be based on... I wonder if they're the same. They're not the same frame. I don't remember. I don't remember why I split them up. There must have been a good reason. But I guess I split them up. There's no effects, or masks. I don't know why I split them up like that. So here we have, so I had that. And then we have this glitch texture. So this is just a separate texture that creates a glitching, broken frame kind of thing going on. That's all it is. So the first part of it is creating fractal noise. And that fractal noise is... Oh, there we go. So that fractal noise is wood in a block pattern. So, hold on, if we hide that. So this is what the wood pattern looks like. It is meant to be sort of a wood grain. But if you block it, then it looks like a pixelated, broken video. And then this is just a second version of that same effect, the fractal noise, to lay on top of it to further distort that effect, to give it a little bit more of a digital feel. Because this alone is kind of nice and pixelated, but once you add that additional layer, it really garbles and feels like static. So you have that texture, and you have that composite video. And so that video is... where is the... There is a point in which you can really clearly see it during the transition, which was not planned. And I'll go a little bit into the random nature of that once I find that. Come on. Is that too far? That's too far. Okay. So yeah, so there's this brief moment where you can see a few frames of that video very clearly. Completely random, by accident. If you look at the glitch texture, at about that time, the reason is because that segment of the screen is black. So what makes it change, what makes it shift, it is as simple as affecting the fractal noise. So this, the way that it changes is based on the seed. So by shifting the seed number, it changes how that noise appears. Oh, right. And changing that seed makes it so, over time, using keyframes, just makes it a lot more chaotic, which is nice. All right. That's right. That's what I was doing. Now, if you look at... I swear I had moved it somehow. But I can't seem to find where that is. Is it under transform? Oh well. I also adjusted like the zoom in and out, but I can't seem to figure out where that information is. So that's weird. So to make it appear over top, I just adjust the opacity. So when it's on top, it's 100. When it's not visible, it is 0. Real simple. Keyframing it. Setting those keyframes to absolute. So when it makes that change, it doesn't gradually change. So from here to here, it's the same opacity, and then once it's done being that opacity, it's just straight to 0. It doesn't ramp, it doesn't change, it just shifts, which is very important. This glitch texture is here only so that we can apply that texture under the set matte effect on top of it. So we apply that as a texture. We set it to luminance. The reason being that once it's set to luminance, what happens is it fills in all of the I believe it's all of the white with the video, and I think it's either all the white with the video and the black is transparent, or the black is the video and the white is transparent. I don't remember. It's not really important at this time, and if it ever mattered, I'd figure it out on the fly, because that's how I live my life. And then, so the tutorial that I watched that taught me how to do these glitch effects said to do it red, green, and blue, because those are your, I guess, your pixel colors. But I realized that actually, the primary mystical colors are green and purple. So that's what I did. I did green and purple. And so what it does is I created a grade effect, which applies an effect to the video below. And I added a tint effect to change the color. Essentially, I changed the color of the whole video. And then applied a shake effect to alter the location so that it wasn't just on top. So if I remove that shake effect, that tint just applies a tint over the video. But if we apply a shake effect, it applies the tint, but also shifts the video so that you get these extra little lines to give it that extra bit of distortion. And so that's all I did for that. I stacked all of these effects on top of each other, like I turned something off. Oh, there we go. Maybe? Yeah. So we apply these effects, and they just all stack together to create this distortion. One thing you might notice if you go through the video again and really pay attention is that when the figure actually appears during the soliloquy, there are distortion effects, but it's not the glitch video. Oops, come on. It is instead just the color distortion and the, I believe the blur distortion as well. No? Oh, yeah. So it's the blur distortion as well. Fun fact, because I'm moving back and forth and the camera has an autofocus, the primary reason for these distortions is actually to help hide those autofocus errors. Yeah, so once I figured all that out and applied that to the final product, I rendered it, set it off, and I think that pretty much explains most of it. Some other little things, discard all them. If we bring up the actual video, because of how like YouTube and some things render things, or bring them, or like upload and compress them, I had to experiment with the quality. I ended up uploading this to a couple different versions to the Secret Talent of Pets website, simply because the compression when it was uploaded made it look weird. So I did some experiments with the quality. And that's why you have one that's labeled low quality, because it didn't quite look right when I uploaded it. So I tried to upscale it.
It's 4 a.m. again.
If you pay attention, this video is essentially the same as the other one.
Staying up too late so I can stay awake. Wish I wasn't so self-obsessed. Wish I could be the best. Excited with my words, but I'm nervous and I'm bored. I'm so bored of waking up. I'm so bored. Bored of what's inside my
friend, I would like very, very much for you to stop playing. Thank you. These two videos don't look different, but because of how the settings are set, the actual upload looked a little bit better. Other things that might be fun to talk about. If you look carefully, many things you see in this shot are in the other shot. So, cheeseburger backpack, hot dog, duffel bag, the laundry hamper, this shelf, and the box, and the table it's on. And this little wicker basket thing. They're there. The Also, you have white, white, purple, and I did this on purpose. Purple, 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 white. It doesn't really mean anything. I just wanted to do something that made it feel like it was this room and it was this world, but it was just a little bit different. Like a transitional space, a liminal space. You've got the cubes, storage cube things that go in these stacked up in various places. I've been doing a lot of ordering from Amazon, and not a lot of leaving the apartment, so I, at this point, just had a whole bunch of boxes. And so that's what's in that room, to try and make it feel a little bit like a different space. And then I cleaned it up. I put some stuff in it. And I stood in there. That's some of the set design stuff. It's all really not super complicated. These are all things that anybody can do if they just put in that time. This took me about 3.5 weeks total between filming and learning. Yeah, it was fun, and it worked out. I'm really glad I did it. God, it was so great. I also am working on an outtakes video, so I'm going to probably post that on YouTube at some point. Not because I think anybody's going to want it or ask for it. It just felt cute. Anyway, so that's the video. That's what I did. If you have any additional questions or wondering about anything that I might have left out, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or on Facebook, or anywhere else that you might see me, like Telegram. And I'll be happy to chat at you about it. So yeah, I'm going to sign off and upload this to YouTube. I think, yeah, I have to upload it, and I think because of Twitch I have to wait 24 hours for it to actually post, but it'll be up there. I hope to see you all again some other time.